Hi. Welcome to the Human Design for Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Yvette Mayer, and this show's for you if you're done with cookie cutter marketing and ready to build your personal brand in alignment with who you really are. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Human Design for Marketing podcast. I'm Yvette, who brings you this wonderful podcast less regularly than I could have been of late. Although I am feeling excited to be back in the podcasting seat and to return with more regular episodes. I will say last year was quite crazy with the amount of travel that I did and just different major life events that unfolded for me. And I do find that the podcast in relation to other types of content feels like something I need to be more organized for and have a plan, and therefore it can feel like it is a lot more to carry. That is partly on me because I don't regularly bring guests on, and maybe that's something I will look at implementing this year so that you get to see more incredible humans doing spiritually aligned marketing type of work and business this year. But for today, I thought I'd start us off for the year with a somewhat personal reflection of my last couple of months. It's going to come back to my design and something of a breakthrough that I've experienced, which I know is going to be relevant to the majority of you around things like what stops you showing up and where parts of your energy can create systems, shall we say. Your body creates systems to continually help you be safe. And some of those safety systems are actually sabotaging you. Not because your body is evil, but because it is driven for survival. And that is not always going to serve you when it comes to growth. So we're going to talk about that. But we're mainly going to talk about it, to be honest, as I reflect on how uncomfortable I felt at times in my business over the last couple of months and how that has played out around what I'm doing in 2026, how I see not just my results, but the future of my business, and why taking a lot of time out of the business has been a great mirror for me and really illuminated some areas of opportunity, some spaces and places that I needed to feel into, and I needed to be distraction free to do that. So I'm going to wind back a little bit to the end of last year. As I got towards December, I had booked in a couple of months of van life. Very exciting. My first real long trip in my van. Now, when I first bought the van, I kind of thought maybe I'll do a lap around Australia at some point. You know, I can work from anywhere. I love to be a nomad. And after that, it's been 2.5 years. I didn't go on any really long trips. In fact, I have been something of a weekend warrior. You know, I've been away for more than a week, but honestly, on longer trips, I have spent more time staying in Airbnbs than in my van itself because whilst I'm nomading, I don't feel super professional, or actually, it's not even that. I don't feel like working as much when I'm in my van. I want to explore. I want to park up by the ocean and stare at the waves, not be in productivity mode. So there's something in that. And, you know, all of this can be looked at through our energy, but it's a truth for me. That said, I always wanted to take a longer trip to see, is this just noise? Is this mental storytelling that's keeping me in my routines of not staying in my van when I'm working, basically. And also I had a story running that I don't sleep so well in the van. I made the decision. I made the decision that I would go on the longest and furthest trip that I've ever taken, which was from where I live near Sydney in New South Wales all the way down to Tasmania. And I would spend 6, 7, 8 weeks. I actually didn't really know when I first booked the return trip. I had to book it and lock it in because there's a boat that crosses between the mainland and Tasmania and Australia, and it sells out, especially if you're taking a van. So I booked it mid-year. I booked it to travel at the end, no, early December, and then return in the middle of January. And then I had a friend say, look, I'd really love to do some of this trip with you. She works in corporate. She can't take as long off or away from her working life as I can. And so we locked in a trip where she came in to Tassie after Christmas and we spent 2 weeks together. She also rented a van. And so we had 2 weeks in a group of two in a couple of vans, and that was spectacular. But that's not what I'm here to do, to tell you about my holiday. I'm actually here to talk about what happened with my business, my nervous system, and how I felt during this trip because it wasn't comfortable. Honestly, it was not comfortable. So when I left, I had been in hyper focus mode, like get lots of things done, get all of the selling or get out in front of all of the sales pushes before December so that I have the luxury of only working a couple of days through December and then into at least some of January, definitely the first half of January. And so, number one, I needed a transition. I couldn't go from all in on my business to zero without my nervous system going haywire. I was too in the rhythm of working and working hard. But I tried. So I really tried immediately to go from working, I don't know, 8 hours a day, at least 3 days a week and more, a few hours at least on Mondays and Fridays, because I generally do 3 full days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and less hours on Monday and Friday. So, but I don't know, I'd been in the high productivity mode. When I got into the van and I was moving around a lot, I had a couple of things happen in the first week. The first one was some guilt. Like, it's just the beginning of December. My business has been firing. What am I even doing, leaving and being in my van right now? Like, it just did not feel comfortable. I then got hit with some pretty average weather. And so you would think that I'd be like, that's fine, I'll go and sit in a coffee shop and I'll work and I'll be really on. But there's a truth that also existed with this, and that is that a lot of me, once I got into my van, checked out. So I had the energy rushing through me and the guilt showing up, but I wasn't available for working a lot of hours. Like I was like, no, I have done all of the work so that I don't need to be in any form of high productivity and I can really enjoy this exploration because I took the long way down to Tasmania. I spent the first week traveling through southern New South Wales and the east coast of Victoria, and I was stopping in places that I have never been before, having experiences that were brand new for me. And so even though I had the like guilt and the what am I even doing, I also had a real resistance to doing long hours. I also had, gosh, I had so many things going on right around this time. But the big one that happened business wise is that my long term senior VA support decided to take time out, potentially indefinitely, without notice. And this is somebody that I treasure and have worked really closely with for a couple of years. And I did feel like, the wool was pulled out from under me because I was just about to go on this trip. And part of the reason I'm able to do this kind of travel is because I have a really strong support system in place. And so for my like second in charge, let's call it, go-to person to not be in the equation right at this time. That did put a lot of extra pressure on me. Also, as I left, I had money stolen. Let's just put it like that. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I had $30,000 disappear from my life. It was through crypto. Is the short story, and that all of these things happened just as I left, and so I'm like, I don't even know how to cope with all of these conflicting things going on, like this scarcity that's showing up because I've just had this money stolen, my right hand human disappearing that keeps all the lights turned on and oversees my junior support. And then very quickly took on a new senior VA. But that was difficult as well because that meant having to do work to onboard. And you cannot bring someone new into your business and expect them to figure it out without help. And I probably didn't do a great job of that because I didn't have time in my schedule, time that I made, uh, to do that as effectively that as I would have at another time. Like if I was doing it now, it'd be entirely different. So all of that was going on. And then as I got to Tasmania, the weather just was very mixed. And for me to even see the best of what this incredible state of Australia has to offer, I really had to pick days when I could see that the weather was going to be my friend to do some of the major experiences and plan my work around that. So for the first couple of weeks in Tasmania, all of this was swirling. And then add into this, I have had a lot of softness with my ads in the last few months. So beginning of last year, if you've been in my world, you may have even found me through my ads. And I had 6 months of consistent high profit and quality humans coming into my world through my ads. And it changed the scale of my impact significantly. And also my ability to be less on when the ads themselves were growing my visibility and attracting the right people into my world that would ultimately not just buy maybe a low ticket product, but stay. Now, this was probably the hardest thing to deal with is that whilst I'm traveling and I'm used to holding a certain level of a level of cash coming through every month, this was going backwards. And I did not have the energy or the desire to breathe life into my ads in December. It wasn't that I did nothing, but I had given myself this space to properly enjoy my travels and to focus my energy into this area whilst I did it. It just wasn't optimal, and it wasn't like I was going to do something new or go in a different direction. It was more like, what can I do as simply as possible to keep the lights on, kind of thing. And that was true through the entirety of December. Now, I am being very, very open with you because I always am, let's be honest. And I share my chaos. And yes, this is another example of difficulty at the beginning. I definitely had difficulty at the beginning of my van life travels. And what really started to land with me during this time is that I have a strong relationship with, how would I put it, proving that I can do anything. And that means if things soften, so in the middle of last year, I can be traveling Europe and working an hour or two a day and having abundant months, and life is amazing. That gives me life. It gives me value. It gives me meaning, feeds my open heart center. And when I take the same set of not the same set of variables, but 6 months later, when I'm giving myself this break and time out and reducing load, doing it sensibly by building cash flow in advance, it doesn't matter how successful I've been. Like last year was over a $450,000 year in the business, and giant leaps forward from where we've been in years gone by. But rather than hold that success, a lot of the time I felt flat. Flat is the right word. Like frustrated, flat, uncomfortable, annoyed with myself because I wasn't having a good enough time. Now, I ended up uh, diagnosing the problem as loneliness, and it was definitely a factor. I mean, spending this amount of time on your own, it's not for the faint-hearted. I was literally on my own in the van for 3 full weeks without connecting with anybody that I know personally, one-on-one in real life. I mean, yes, I was talking to people on the phone, and I was having Zoom calls, and I was working with private clients, all of that good stuff, but I wasn't like hanging out and being friendly and feeling somebody's energy in person. And add all of the other things that were going on with me, it got to the point where I just didn't want to be there anymore. And it wasn't Tasmania. Tasmania is beautiful. And I was very aware. Like, I don't hide my challenges, my blocks from myself or from you. I don't hide them. I look at them, I work with them, I grow through them. And yet, in this instance, the growth move for me was to stop trying so hard to be the person who can work 2 hours a day and not care if things are wobbly financially, or more wobbly, I shouldn't say wobbly, and be on their own all the time and be responsible and take care of myself. Like, just trying for all of that to be okay, and bring on a new staff member. Let's just throw all the rest of it in there, and navigate the the crypto scenario. In the end, I gave up and said, you know what? I just want to be with my family and friends. I don't want to be here anymore. So I ended up flying home to Sydney, which I was always going to do, but I ended up flying home to Sydney a few days early. And it was the best decision ever. Within 48 hours, I felt myself regulated, like my nervous system started to settle. The hugs, the love, I love yous, the quality conversations, you just can't beat that. And I'm really actually proud of myself that I didn't tough it out, because that is something that I tend to do. Like, I just want to prove that I can do anything. So that's all true. And then went home, had Christmas, had a fabulous time, spent a week in Sydney, caught up with friends, caught up with family, like amazing, amazing. And then I flew back to Tasmania to have 2 weeks with another friend who was coming in from Queensland. And I knew this was going to be very different because I wouldn't be on my own. I was in company all day, every day. And I also wasn't working at all. This was like, turn the computer off. Half the time we didn't even have cell reception. So I couldn't check. I couldn't be hyper vigilant. I couldn't do all the things that I normally do to like give myself some sense of security. And we were hiking. So it was a very physical, out in nature, lots of time to thinking, but no, what would I call it? None of my normal stimulation and probably cortisol injections that I get through my business were happening at this time. Like, I am offline. I am doing things like a 19-kilometer walk on New Year's Eve. We did that. Oh my God, walk. I should say hike. Like, it was steep. We went up to a very quite significant. It wasn't a summit. We did that later in the trip, but it was a big mountain. It was high, uh, and that was also challenging. Oh my God, I have to tell you, I'm a very competitive person. I don't know if you've picked up on this, but I am. And the friend I was traveling with is extremely fit and very fast on land. I would say I'm more of a water baby. I wasn't expecting that she would be running rings around me when we were hiking, to the point where I was often losing, like, I was just running out of breath. I was running out of breath and feeling like, oh my God, like I need to catch up, and like really trying to pick my feet up, but then not enjoying it. And, I'm in my mid 50s. My body was hurting. So that was fascinating to just witness myself in this environment. Like, I'm not working. I'm not, there should be no comparisonitis, nothing like that going on. And yet here I am trying to get myself up the mountain faster so that I keep up. Uh, that that was very present. We also went kayaking. My goodness, we went kayaking in an area called the Tarkine, which was just stunning. And I had high hopes that in the boat that maybe I would be quicker. I was not. Another example of her just taking off and me scrambling behind, trying to keep up and not look like I'm not fit enough or I'm not strong enough, because clearly I am. So that all happened. And as time wore on, I really started to look at myself more deeply. And I do a lot of personal development work, but I was really looking at, wow, this is so interesting that on the one hand, I am having the best time. Like that these couple of weeks were incredible, like seeing incredible landscapes and, watching penguins coming out of the water at night, and wombats like in the middle of Cradle Mountain, and jumping in little streams in tiny free camping spots. That's all happening at the same time. I'm offline, so I'm not seeing messages come in. I know that they're coming. Like occasionally, like we'd be at a summit and I'd get all these notifications, but once we were down again, I'd be out of reception. So I couldn't check back in with people. And I also was telling myself, like, you've told everybody you're not contactable. It's okay, or that most people. But over the course of all of this, the biggest thing that I started to do was think, gosh, my open heart has a lot to answer for. This pattern, now I know that like a lot of us have an open will center, an open heart center. Like over 50% of the population do. So I know that if you're listening to this, a lot of you are going to share this with me. And this is actually why I decided to talk about this, because I wanted to talk to you about the open centers and how much we can learn from them and see what's going on when we're aware and present and actually looking at it and doing the work to move through and set up support systems so that we don't allow things like open centers or our not self to run the show. Now, for me, my open heart center is something that I look at my mum's chart. I've shared this on the podcast before, and my own. We both have the same thing, not a single gate defined. So completely open. And when I share with you everything that unfolded over the last 6 weeks or so, the biggest theme was me trying to prove myself over and over and over again. I am still worthy. I am still worthy. I am still worthy when I'm not earning as much. I am worthy of having this time away from my business. I am proving that I'm as fit as you by trying to keep up with you. I am proving how successful my business is by sharing my income results with you. Like all of this stuff is going on and on and on. And it really got me thinking about how, as leaders in the human design space, I think we need to get beyond diagnosing the problem. I'm not saying it's a problem to have a lot of open space, because I have a lot. It's getting beyond the understanding and into living in a way where it helps us. This is where I think there's more work to be done. And this is my humble opinion. what I can see is that where we're not consistent in a particular, so just to lay it out, if you're newer to human design, especially where you're defined, you have consistent energy. Where you're open, this is energy that turns it on and off depending on your environment and other things like the people you're around. But essentially, what I observe is that our open centers, it's an instability in the center. Like it's not safe, it's uncertainty. Okay, so it's uncertain. So we'll use the will center as an example. I don't have a consistent sense of worthiness. Will that change? Unlikely. This is how I'm designed. I don't have consistency. It's not something that will heal, that I'll move on from, that I'll say, I deconditioned that. Come on, no. Uh, and yes, it is conditioning, it is mirror, we do grow. However, we do not have consistency here. So the more powerful move is to not just understand it, but to be aware when it shows up and to meet ourselves there with tools that support us, particularly around our nervous system. Because I think the biggest challenge is we get dysregulated when we're being protected, shall we say, by a center. It's like trying to do its job to keep you safe. So for me, and for a lot of you, with an open will center, that center is trying to become more certain by protecting me. And the strategy is I will prove my worth. And that shows up unconsciously. So over and over and over again at the unconscious level, I am running this center in its inconsistency, and it's not my body like trying to destabilize me. It is instead my body trying to make it safe, prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself. That's how we get safe. But it's a false economy. It's a false economy. This safety mechanism is robbing me of my peace. And I can imagine that it's doing the same for you. Now, the antidote to that is not I will say a million affirmations and it's just going to go away, or I'll see it and I'll release it in an instant. It's actually meeting it there and doing the work to release that somatically. Now, I'm not a somatic teacher, but I can say this, that what I've learned through being in this kind of pressure cooker type scenario of analysis of, yes, I have an open head, I like to think a lot too, of what is really going on here, I realized that the longer that I was off work and off all of the stimulus that I usually have feeding me and helping me prove my worth, the less I cared. But what was also happening was I was processing this and I was moving. I was moving my body a lot. I was slowly but surely letting go. And I was regulating myself. Like that amount of journaling, hiking, swimming in like ice cold water and going into saunas and I did all of those things. And by the end of it, I felt so much calmer, but not healed. I felt that there's a part of my work that I think is coming through me, which is how do we work with these aspects of ourselves that do show up and block us from sales and marketing? They are very present. And I have a huge community of incredible humans who oftentimes tell me that their showing up is their biggest block. Like it's becoming visible is the hardest thing. And I know that part of that is the awareness of what's driving that. And it's a safety mechanism. Where does it live? How can they work with that in their design and see it? And also, what is it going to take for them to regulate through that and help them feel or connect into the healthy expression and not just healthy, but regulated expression in any given moment. Not consistently, but in any given moment. And so I wanted to share this with you very vulnerably and truthfully because it's been so real for me, but also as a setup to the next episode, which I'm going to record, which will be about the roles that we unconsciously play in our open centers, or the roles the centers themselves play to try and keep us safe. And a little bit of a clue for you, the role of the open heart center when it comes to safety is the prover. Okay, so that's just the first one, but we're going to talk about all of them on the next episode and how these centers and this behavior is actually blocking you from sales and marketing, but sales in particular. So I can't wait for that. Thank you for being with me for this one. I trust there's been something in here of an eye-opening or a reality check. Maybe you could relate, and I look forward to being back with you again soon. Bye for now. There are heaps more resources in the show notes. I can't wait to be back in your ears again soon. Bye for now.